I don't think a lot of people are as aware of just how entrenched Stephanie and Hunter are right now. I mean, it's to the point where Hunter for sure, Stephanie at least one day, Monday, Tuesday on the road, and then down to Orlando for Tough Enough, and then Hunter, as an example, every third week, NXT taping. And like this week, they've got NXT sold out on Saturday. They've got SummerSlam sold out on Sunday. They have Raw sold out on Monday. Yeah, and then they're going to go to Providence for SmackDown. And then they go back down. Hunter goes back down for NXT taping in 2 weeks. And believe it or not, because I talk to Hunter all the time, when he's not on the road, and this is a guy that he's got to have that 2-hour workout every day or he's miserable. He's on Vince's schedule. He works out at 11 o'clock at night now because he's in the office, and so is Stephanie. Because this guy has always pushed Steph in that direction, but he's making sure that Hunter's got a grasp of it too. Would you? I keep using that statement, but that's my take on it anyway.
Well, okay, here's the thing that I get into when I do a lot of these interviews and things, because I have no dog in the fight. I'm not there. I love to be there. Yeah, but that's not why I'm saying this either. When I hear the stuff about, well, Hunter's only there because he married into it. Well, long before Hunter...
That's a bullshit story.
Long before Hunter and Stephanie were Hunter and Stephanie, Paul Levesque was one of the first guys to show up at the building. He was sitting in on production meetings. He was offering up ideas. He has been a student of the business from day one. If he had never even crossed paths with Stephanie in any way, shape, or form, he would be deserving of the spot that he is in now because he worked his ass off to get there. And he's good. Okay? People want to say what they will, but these are people that have never met him, that have never been around him and watched him work from the inside. Okay? From the outside looking in at him, you go, oh, well, God, it's easy for him. He's married to the boss's daughter. They drive around it.
That's a bullshit statement, too. I hear that, too. It pisses me off when people say that because they don't get this guy's work ethic, man. Jesus.
No. And he was doing it long before. Okay? That's the part that you sit there and look at. And he always was one of those guys who would sit back quietly, but he would always offer suggestions. He was always out there plugging, and he was always trying to do something more. He didn't have to show up early and go to production meetings. He asked if he could. He didn't have to watch other guys' matches and offer them help. He did it because he loved it, and he still does it. I just look at NXT and the developmental system. And when we started that in the studio, in the warehouse with my brother training guys, and to where it is now is amazing. Because it is the future. It's the only future that we've got right now. But here's a guy that worked his ass off as a talent in the ring and has worked to learn the business and has got his hands dirty doing it. And for people to sit back that have never met him, never met you, never met me, and judge based on what they perceive reality to be is bullshit.
Yeah, you know what the moral of the story is, Bruce?
What's that?
Well, number one, he was working for Gold's Gym in New Hampshire. You knew that, right?
Yep.
And number two, I owned 11 Gold's Gyms, if you remember correctly, right?
Yep.
And number three, he happened to be at the Sheridan in Columbus, Georgia, one night when I was performing. Thank God I had the balloon on, hence Triple H.
Nice.
Nice. The old balloon trick got him again.
Always. Always.
I don't think a lot of people really understand the importance and, his knowledge and what he meant to the WWF and then later the WWE. So before he gets here, go ahead and give everybody your perspective on what Bruce's contribution to the business really was.
Well, God, it's to me, Bruce is one of the geniuses of the business, of the industry. I mean, he's right there with my estimation with Michael Hayes and Pat Patterson and, Dusty and, of course, Vince and Stephanie and Hunter. But, I mean, he was there when the Undertaker thing came together. I mean, he's been there through so many pivotal positions for the company that I just think his knowledge of the business and the fact that he is a great entertainer himself. I mean, the brother love thing I thought was one of the best of all time, and he pulled it off. I'm not even sure why it's not there, and I'm not sure why it's not with WWE right now. But I do understand that he's had health issues with his wife, and he's at home now. And probably the schedule up there, which is very hectic, as you know, it would be a lot for Bruce. But it's not for lack of credentials or credibility. He's a genius.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting some of his insight on, some old fun stories. But really, since we are WrestleMania season, and it kind of seems like that's what everybody's talking about, I want to hear his perspective on, if he was still there booking, what he would do for WrestleMania.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that's a great question. I think. The problem is that no matter what he said, he wouldn't have final say. I just asked Michael Hayes a question today. I said, "You're absurd asking me this now. We haven't got to Sunday yet."
All right, so Rick, now Bruce is with us. Bruce, we were just kind of talking a little bit before about WrestleMania season coming up this weekend. We've got Fastlane. You were there for a long time, and if you were there now, given kind of the circumstances they have with injuries and all of that, how would you try to salvage WrestleMania from what the original plans are? It seems like none of that is possible thanks to all the injuries. What would Bruce do?
Well, again, it is difficult because of all the injuries. And it's also difficult because you can have the greatest ideas in the entire world. If the boss doesn't anoint it, then it's not something he's going to endorse. It's never going to fly anyway.
Right.
If I had carte blanche, okay, and based on what they have right now, you're going towards Hunter and you're going towards Roman Reigns. I mean, that's the direction that it appears to be going in. They built to it. So to try and change that now is kind of a moot point.
Right.
But when you're looking at opponents for Undertaker, you're looking at opponents for Brock Lesnar, those are your money guys.
Right.
And what are you going to do with them? And it just brings a lot of conjecture. You can fantasy book all you want, put Undertaker and Goldberg.
Right.
Is that an attractive match?
Sure.
Never happened? Possibly. But is Goldberg willing to come in and do business and come in and want to do that? Who knows?
Well, Let me ask you a question. What makes you think that Reigns is walking out of there?
Because of the way that they built it so far.
Uh-huh.
And with where they're going and the way they built everything, I'm just looking at, I don't have that insider's view. I'm looking at it strictly from a fan and looking at it strictly what they put on TV.
Right.
I see that it appears that they're pushing Reigns to that point.
Yeah. I mean, I think so too, but I just never know because I think that, every time they need something big, like Brock's on SportsCenter. I mean, it's hard to get other guys on SportsCenter.
Right.
I never walk away without the possibility that Brock might be in the main event there too. You know what I mean? I'm like you, but I think clearly they have pushed Roman really hard.
He really and truly he should be.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, if you were to go in with that line of thinking where it was Roman and it was Triple H and maybe Undertaker Goldberg, what would you have in mind for a guy like Brock Lesnar?
What would I have in mind, or what would they? I think it's hard because of the way they book certain guys. Kevin Owens, if you had brought Kevin Owens in and you had built him the right way,
right?
Man, I would have bought a Brock Kevin Owens match. Now, please forget about it,
right?
Because I think Brock would just kill him. A guy like Alberto Del Rio, personally, I think that would be a great match, Brock and Alberto Del Rio. If you told Del Rio's backstory, an MMA fighter, was a shoot fighter, he's got a great history, looks great, he looks the part, and he could deliver. I think he could deliver a great match with Brock.
First of all, I'm a big fan of Del Rio's, and he and I have become good friends. I did not know he had a background in MMA.
Yes.
Yeah, he actually fought in Pride in Japan, Rick, years ago. And he wore
I
a
didn't
mask.
know that. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't come across as a tough, bully type kid at all. That's great. I didn't know he had that kind of background.
He really does. He's got a hell of a pedigree. He did well in that genre. He did well in MMA.
Wow.
And he was a name in Pride. He did do things. But you just take a look at him. And if you were back in the old days, you're sitting around smoking a cigar with some of the old timers, go, I can see that kid as a champion.
Yeah.
God, I can see building an entire territory around him.
Well, let me tell you, it won't be because he's not handsome enough. The kid is. I mean, he looks like $1 million bucks.
He's beautiful.
Hey, and
he's a good-looking guy. The girls would go gravitate towards him. The guys would want to be him. And he can back it up when the bell rings.
Yeah, and he is a great performer, too. I mean, the kid can work, man. He can really go. I'm more impressed by him every time I see him.
Well, now that you know that he has an MMA background, I mean, you think about that. If they were to exploit that in the way that he did work like that, he did used to work that what they call strong style, I guess.
Right.
It's believable. And he made it believable. He's one of the few luchadors that have crossed over and really meant something, and people can buy him and believe in him.
Yeah, I think, though, and I'm being facetious right now, but every time I see Lesnar throwing everybody around, I think Del Rio likes being on the other side of the ring from somebody else. Because I don't care how tough he was. Lesnar's a different deal. And I don't know how much more Dean Ambrose can take. God dang it. When he calls him out and tells him to come back and bring me more, I die. And I tell him to his face, Ambrose, you need psychiatric help, man. Who's ever writing that down, just say no.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, no.
He threw both Ambrose and Reigns across the ring last night, 10 feet in the air. It was brutal.
You know why? Because he can. And every time he does it, people in the arena, people on TV sit there and go, wow.
Yeah, that's why Del Rio should probably sit where he's at.
So, Bruce, talking about WrestleMania a little bit, what do you think, what would you do with a guy like Bray Wyatt?
Wow, again, everything is just so fragmented because of the injuries.
Right.
It's tough. I started putting pencil and paper to it the other day, and you look at that roster, it's slim pickings. Mm-hmm. And getting into WrestleMania season now, it's not like you've got a whole lot of time to bring in somebody fresh and new from NXT and get them over in time to do anything at WrestleMania.
Well, you mentioned Goldberg. Are they talking to Goldberg about wrestling?
I have no idea. That's why I say that's completely out of from a fan perspective. Yeah. Who's not there? Who could bring some interest and maybe some new eyeballs? Mm-hmm.
You think there's any chance they try to bring Sting back just one more time for the Undertaker match?
There could always be a chance. I don't know what the extent of his injuries either.
He can't wrestle again, guys.
Yeah. So I mean that's.
And now take it back. To my knowledge, because we had him on the podcast, he made it pretty clear to Conrad and I that he has to have surgery if he even wants to consider wrestling again. And I don't think he's had it, has he? I haven't heard that he has.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
But it's like, Rick, you just brought it back to reality. The reality is who can step into that spot and deliver and make it so that it's a money match so that people are going to want to see it, and also make it a match that you can't pick them. You can't pick who that winner is. And with Goldberg, that would be one you could sit there and go, what are they going to do?
Do you still think there's a chance that Super Cena could beat expectations and come back just for that match?
Sure. There's always that chance.
Yeah.
Cena's a cyborg.
Right.
I mean, you just you can plug him in and go. And I'm sure if you were to ask John Cena whether or not he could come back, he would be back in a heartbeat.
Wow.
But there's, that's a tough one, man, because it's Taker, it's Texas, it's 100,000 people. Yeah, I heard the rumblings of the big kid in Bray Wyatt's camp, Strowman.
Yeah.
I just don't think that the audience would accept that.
Right.
to me, that's a step down. That's a WrestleMania 9 Taker versus Giant Gonzalez match.
Yeah.
Or Taker versus...
Well, in all fairness to Ron, he just doesn't have the experience.
I'm not... In 2 years?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. No, they brought him in on the fly, and he really has never had a chance to he's not put in a position where he can learn. He's always in a position of having to perform, and it's a lot. It can be overwhelming. He's big enough and strong enough to pull it off, but just not enough name recognition.
And it's not fair to him to put him in that position at this time.
Well, let's talk about that, Rick. You were there when WCW brought in Paul White and made him the Giant and put the belt on him in his first match, and that didn't happen because he was of his technical prowess. He wasn't Ricky Steamboat. It was because he was huge.
No. Let me tell you. But here's the difference. Paul White, our friend Big Show, played Division I collegiate basketball.
Right.
He's more coordinated than any big guy in the business. He's unbelievable. And he caught on as fast as, he's not Kurt Angle caught on, but he caught on so fast. And he's big and strong and agile. And to this day, the guys don't do it with him. I don't know why. But he can press slam, he can power slam, he can suplex off a time, he can do anything. The guys just don't do it with him. And he doesn't push the button. I used to love doing that with him because he was so safe. But you can't compare Big Show to Ron. It's just two different guys.
No. I'm not necessarily saying that their talent was the same. I'm just saying some of that is still the booking, is it not? In that it's the way the Giant was booked to just accentuate the positives, hide the negatives. Not to say that he wasn't just a natural, but there's no way that early in his career – he was already at the world championship level of knowledge. He just got there because of his size and then had to play catch-up ball, so to speak. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess, because it was my recommendation that he manage someone until he learned more about, working. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
but
that was
Hulk wanted him to be the Giant's son. That was I didn't like that at all. Because number one, I thought it was disrespectful to Andre. Because to follow that character and that guy and that legend of the guy was asking a lot. And number two, I think it's a lot of pressure on the Big Show to be Andre the Giant's son. It is what it is. I see the issues with anybody that's a second generation in real life. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's taken Ashley. Ashley, for the first 2 years, people were just saying she was there because she was my daughter. Well, we all know that's bullshit. She's the best performer in the women's diva division, and she's the best athlete in the company. And you know what? Guys won't argue that because she's that good an athlete. But and how do you measure that? Pick out free sports and have them go play it. No, she's just a tremendous athlete. But it took a long time to get over the stigma of being my daughter. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now she's got a groove and she's found herself and she's very comfortable, but she's still going to hear that stuff from people that are jealous. The business guys. That nobody,
Sure.
The saying is if they're talking about you, you're doing something good, but it still hurts.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
Back in the day when the Nature Boy was riding high, I bought myself a limousine, hired a kid to drive me around. He had the time of his life. Now I use Uber when I need to get around. If you're looking to make some extra money, you can drive with Uber using your own car. Uber is a smartphone app that connects riders with drivers, and it's totally flexible. You don't have to quit your day job to make more money because Uber lets you make extra money on your schedule. Whatever you need to make extra money, just turn on the app and drive. A few hours here, a few hours there, it all adds up fast. And it's really easy to get started. First, go to drivewithuber.com to sign up for free. You can do it right now on your phone. Second, answer a few basic questions about you and your car, then get approved. Third, start driving. That's all there is to it. I told you it was easy. Start enjoying the flexibility of working when you want and earning extra money on your schedule. Sign up to drive with Uber today. Go to drivewithuber.com. That's drivewithuber.com. Drive with UBER.com. Woo!
It's a lot different when you take, okay, we'll take Ashley, for example, or you take Kevin, Kerry, and David, Von Erich, for example. These were guys that could go in and they could perform and they could do it versus a George Goulas, who was Nick Goulas' son, who was put in the main event because he was George's son, and that was the only reason that he was there.
Yeah, I never met him, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but he didn't have the talent. He wasn't able to do it. The younger Von Erich, Mike, and they didn't have the talent. They didn't have the talent of Kerry and David and Kevin. Yeah, they just didn't. But they were put there because of their name.
They didn't have the size either. I mean,
exactly.
Those three kids were genetically gifted. I mean, especially Kevin and Kerry. My God, David was built more like a basketball player, but he was a good athlete and obviously a really good performer. Yeah,
right.
It's funny. I just, sometimes my heart goes out to her because she and Conrad have bonded because. God forbid I say anything. She doesn't believe a word I say, so she'll ask Conrad's opinion. Am I right, Conrad?
No, you're exactly right. And she's doing great. And there is a lot of, there's a lot of smack talk on the internet, but that exists, all across with everyone.
And that's the part that gets me. And it seems like I'm always sticking up for Hunter for whatever reason. I just think he's a talented guy. But if you had put Ashley in and no one knew who the hell she was,
right,
they'd all be screaming about she's the second coming, the greatest thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
But because her dad's standing there with her now, and you tell her that it's a Flair, well, that's the only reason she's there.
Right. It's just easy to...
Well, that's not happening so much anymore.
Yeah, it's also not true when you measure apples to apples.
Right.
Yeah.
She's there.
Yeah, and she's better than I was all day long. So that, as an athlete... And
see, here's the deal. People on the internet, when Rick says that, they get fired up. But what he means when he says that is 3 or 4 years into his career, compared to her 3 or 4 years into her career, she's at another level from where he was at that time. Not the 1986 Ric Flair.
No, but what I'm just saying that this is what I mean. Could I do a moonsault if I had started doing them 20 years or when I first got going? Yeah, but I mean, I'm not the athlete that she is, and I'm admitting it.
It's a different caliber athlete. Would you agree?
What's that?
It's a different caliber of athlete
in the business today.
Yes.
Performing in the business today.
It is, but
back in the day.
That's true in all sports.
It is.
You look at football players back then and now, and basketball then and now, and baseball then and now. With what we know about science and nutrition and all that other, everything's different.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's like Fifi. Could Fifi beat Charlotte? Well, I don't know.
Maybe on a Casper mattress. Hey, Rick, we went to the internet this week on Twitter, and we asked for something a little different. We've had a lot of success with #AskNach, and this week we went #AskBruce. And since we're kind of talking about nepotism and kids in the business and how all that works, we had a great question from Lenny that's aimed for you, Bruce. Were you surprised when Shane left the biz?
Yes, I was. I was surprised because Shane loved the business. Shane loved the company and loved every single aspect of the business. Now, we give you a flip side on the personal side of Shane. Was I surprised that Shane left for the reasons that he did, which were his own personal reasons in not wanting to have a bunch of drama that he felt was unnecessary? That didn't surprise me. That part didn't surprise me. The fact that Shane would walk away from the business that he loved, grew up, was a part of his makeup and his identity, yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I was as shocked as you are, Bruce, but I don't know what preempted that or what happened. Because one day he was there and one day he was gone.
Right, and again, that's where I get to that point too. The only ones that really know is Shane.
Yeah, exactly.
That truly really knows is Shane.
Family.
I mean, we've discussed it, but that's a personal conversation I've had with Shane, and it was not the rumor and innuendo. It's just that rumor and innuendo.
Yeah,
that no one's ever going to really know until you were in Shane's shoes.
Yeah,
Well,